Welcome to another edition of Focus News Magazine. I'm Tom McArthur.
And I'm Shelly Swanke. Parking's always been a problem at PLU, and tonight we'll be looking into where PLU has proposed to add some additional lots. Also, the homosexual issue on campus has received a lot of controversy lately, and we'll be looking at the gay support group and some of their feelings.
We'll have a story on the AURA program, which is for older students who are coming back to college, and we'll have a story on peace awareness, both at this campus and at campuses across the country. Later on in the program, we'll also have a focus commentary.
There's also a group that is the Student Investment Fund, and we'll be looking at them, what they do, and what they do with the money that they've received.
Those stories and a lot more coming right up, so stay with us.
The Communication Arts program at Pacific Lutheran University is concerned with improving interpersonal, group, and public communication. The department offers a practical understanding to all students and prepares them for participation in areas of communication, the theater, and broadcast journalism. For more information, please call the university at 535-7762.
Right now, the library parking lot looks a little empty, but normally it's jam-packed. Many say that there isn't enough parking around the PLU campus to meet its needs. Focus reporter Fritz Brandenburg has a story on additional parking spaces.
A 10-year comprehensive parking plan has been submitted to Pierce County. It's a request to bring the PLU's campus under one zoning classification, and it projects PLU's use of the new facilities over the next 10 years. As of the fall of 1982, there were over 1,450 off-street parking spaces available to the PLU community. These spaces are used by both employees and students. In the fall, an effort in the form of parking tickets was made by both campus safety and state officers to encourage upper campus residents to park on campus. Flyers were distributed to those students instructing them to use the new temporary North Olson lot. The efforts made by campus safety deputies have been hampered by the loss of the services of Ravon Newman. As a consequence, the State Patrol and county deputies have now increased their efforts on PLU's behalf. This program of fines and inducement will continue and become a permanent part of the PLU parking program with the goal of reducing street parking to an acceptable level. The rate of growth for the next 10 years is now estimated at 1% per year. This increase of parking needs for approximately 450 persons, both students and faculty, will be accommodated for by several new parking lots. 4 new lots will be added and 2 will be lost to construction. The lots added are the Alumni Lot, located at 124th and Park Street, the Science Building Lot just north of the new maintenance area. More spaces will be added to the Ivy Lot when the new Science Building has been completed. The Ivy Lot is located on 124th across from Memorial. In addition also is a totally new lot to be built on 125th and Park. The lots to be closed are the North Olson Lot and the Swim Pool Lot. A net gain of over 470 parking spaces will more than adequately compensate for the growth of PLU. Planned also are several street closures which will add to the growth of PLU. Wheeler Street, 121st at places where PLU owns both sides, Park from Wheeler to 124th Street, Yakima and 127th Street, 124th Street and J, and also other closures illustrated here. PLU is expanding, and this comprehensive parking plan assures that PLU's needs will be met over the coming 10 years. This is Fritz Brandenburg reporting for Focus News Magazine.
One of the issues that has received quite a bit of press lately is the issue of gay students here at PLU. Here with a story on the gay student group at PLU and with some voices from the academic world is Shelly Swanke.
Homosexuality is often a very emotional-laden issue. It's been considered a form of deviant behavior for many years, and it's considered sinful in some religious circles. On campus right now, there's been an attempt to start a gay support group They do not want to become a chartered organization, nor necessarily recognized by the university. What they do want is to be a support group to facilitate themselves and the struggles that go along with being gay. Whether or not they wanted to, they have been recognized by the students at this university, and it's been causing a great deal of controversy.
Vice President of Student Life, Mary Lou Finelli, says there is a need for a gay group to exist on campus.
I think there's need for gay students on campus to have a support group to which they can belong. In terms of a recognized student group that is gay students, I'm not sure the university is quite ready for that yet. As perhaps our typical constituency not being ready to accept that on the campus. This is again one of those areas where acceptance is growing slowly, and there's a great deal of need for more knowledge and more understanding.
3 members of the group talked with me about being gay and the issues facing them. Their names have been changed and voices altered to protect their identity. They also feel that a gay support group is needed.
There's a need for gay groups everywhere because there are gays everywhere. And we need support groups, just like any other group. You need people that you can relate to.
A recent survey indicates that about 13% of the total population is homosexual. At PLU, that would mean about 500 students would be gay. There is nowhere near that number in the group. Members suggest there could be several reasons that not that many are speaking up about being gay. Perhaps there are some that don't know it yet, or maybe others that have found support in other groups. But for many, they suspect it might have something to do with the religious atmosphere at PLU. As is evident in letters to the mooring mast each week, there is somewhat of a scriptural battle going on over the topic. Sociology professor Dwight Oberholzer says that it is possible for gays to be Christian.
Well, it certainly is possible for someone to be Christian and be homosexual. Now, that may be a contradiction for other people, but it's not a contradiction of great impact for thousands and thousands of gay people who are members of regular Protestant, Catholic, Jewish groups in this country.
All 3 of the people I talked to said they had come to terms with God and homosexuality. They feel that the terms are not mutually exclusive.
God made me how I am, so there must be a reason for it, and that He is happy with me how I am and living my life the way I do. Therefore, I guess it really isn't that big of an issue for me.
However, having to deal with straights about the issue of God and homosexuals is sometimes harder. Bob says that often at PLU he gets a Bible thrown in his face. At that point, he says,
There's really nothing you can say to someone who comes up to you and says, God says in the Bible that you're going to hell, basically, is what they say. There's really no way you can argue with them because they've closed the book on the discussion. And all I can do is explain my point of view and the way I feel. And basically, you just have to let it go over your back. You express your feelings. They don't accept that and still condemn you to hell. I have to know within myself where I stand on my faith, and that's the important thing.
the gay population has some of the common problems associated with any minority. It is usually the norm that a minority wants changed. In this case, the norm are heterosexuals. Oberholzer suggests that the problem may not be with homosexuals, but rather with a straight person.
What people call the gay problem is in many ways the straight problem. It's the straight problem of rejection, intolerance, attempts to write categories of people off just because of one or two things you know about them and so forth, and from a distance, from a great distance. So we're talking in large measure about not only the way gay people understand their sexuality, but the way that straight people understand theirs, and what sexuality is all about, and how it's supposed to be used and not used, and so forth.
It is evident that the gay issue is not an easy one for PLU as a community to deal with. Finelli points out that even discomfort may be valuable.
and that, as with all developmental kinds of things, there will be pain involved with that, psychic pain, emotional pain. And the process will not always be orderly. It may be chaotic, but that is part of change and part of growing, and we all go through that. And the growing pains are never, ever over, no matter how old we get to be. As long as we keep growing, there's going to be some pain, and I think that the community is going to experience some discomfort over this issue and some real soul-searching.
Yesterday, the gay support group suffered a blow when it was informed that they could no longer use the bulletin to let other gays know that they exist. PLU is trying to meet the needs of as many students as they can. That does not mean that everyone will agree as to which needs should be met. The gay population is small at PLU, but they do exist, even if some of the students don't like it. With photographers Valerie Westcott and Tom McArthur, I'm Shelly Swanke for Focus News Magazine.
Well, you know, Shelly, not all the students here at PLU are between the ages of 18 and 24.
That's right, Tom, and that group has some unique challenges before it.
There's a group that's been organized to help those people meet those extra challenges. Here with the story is Trudy Strain.
While most college degree programs are targeted toward the young, PLU offers a helping hand to those adults who want to return to school. It's called Accelerated Undergraduate Reentry for Adults, abbreviated AURA. AURA originated in 1978, a product of PLU faculty members designed to help adults return to college. The program serves 15 adults each semester, and AURA director Rick Seegers says the process by which they are chosen is selective.
Well, we look for excellent verbal skills. They've got to be able to read and write well. Some people get out of high school, don't go on to college, get a work-a-day job, and kind of cave in. Drink beer and watch football games, that kind of thing. People who do that are not likely to make good AURA students. Okay, AURA is for people who have stayed intellectually active and alert over the years.
After AURA students are accepted, one of many tasks is to write a detailed account of their life experiences. And from this report, a student can be awarded academic credit toward graduation. AURA students, on the average, maintain a high grade point and are well able to keep up in class.
I like also working with the adults. The one thing I think that characterizes them more than any other single trait that separates them from other students is the level of their motivation. And it is without exception high.
It isn't easy for an adult who has gone through family living to return to student life, and part of Seegers' job is to relieve the fears and anxieties that AURA students may face. AURA graduate Jan Mall received the full 48 credits and junior status after writing her biography. She sees the program as an incentive, one that helps adults realize that life in itself is a learning and growing experience, much like college.
I say that with all sincerity. I think that it has been extremely exciting, stimulating for me, and has pushed me towards things that not that I wasn't capable of doing on my own, but that realistically I would not have done on my own. And I think like anything that we do in life and do successfully, it gives a person just that much more self-confidence.
And as long as there are adults who desire a complete college education, PLU's AURA program will be there to guide them. I'm Trudy Strain reporting for Focus News Magazine.
Do you believe in leprechauns?
Absolutely not. There's no such thing.
Well, just to prove you wrong, Focus found a leprechaun running across campus the other day. Here's what he had to tell us about St. Patrick's Day.
There is more to St. Patrick's Day than leprechauns and four-leaf clovers. Here with that story is Luann Huntermark and Pat Fury.
Scholars believe St. Patrick was born in a town in Wales near the mouth of the Severn River around the year 389 during the Roman occupation of Britain. His Roman name was Patricius Magnus Succatus. Little is known about Patrick's childhood, but when he was 16, he was captured by Irish raiders and taken to the northeast part of Ireland. There he remained as a slave for 6 years until he escaped and fled to the southeast section of the island and then to England. Many of the events that followed are uncertain, but it is known that at some point St. Patrick went to France and studied there for priesthood. He was ordained a priest and later consecrated bishop. In 432, Patrick returned to Ireland to begin his work of converting the people to Christianity. St. Patrick faced severe difficulties in his task because of the great influence of pagan priests, but when he was finally successful in converting these pagan leaders, the people soon followed. By the year 444, he was so successful that he called a meeting of all the bishops he had consecrated and established a church with its head at Armagh. Armagh then became the center of Christian life in Ireland and, later, the center of education as well. It was here, too, that St. Patrick made his headquarters until his death on March 17, 461.
St. Patrick is remembered on this day, for it is known as the greatest of Irish feast days throughout the world. Luann talked with an Irish gentleman by the name of Flanagan on just what St. Patrick's Day meant to him.
Corned beef and cabbage and a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, what kind of a crowd?
A big crowd. Everybody's Irish on the 17th of March every year.
Why is that?
If you're not Irish and you weren't born Irish, you tell everybody you're Irish, because that's the most important thing in the world is to be Irish.
The greater part of Ireland is overgrown with luxuriant green vegetation, including the ever-present shamrock, which gives Ireland its well-known title, the Emerald Isle. The whole countryside has a delightful beauty. The woods are noted for their greenness. There is an abundance of flowers. The beauty of the island is due largely to the moist and mild climate of the country. If you think Washington rains a lot, you might compare it to Ireland's 40 inches of rain per year. The wild animal life in Ireland is almost non-existent, for there are only birds and small rodents. There are no reptiles in Ireland. One can contribute this fact to one of the best-known legends of St. Patrick. It is said that St. Patrick drove all of the snakes from Ireland. When St. Patrick's Day is mentioned, the average person thinks of many things. For instance, the leprechaun. Webster's dictionary defines the leprechaun as a mischievous elf in Irish folklore. A shamrock might also come to mind. It is said that St. Patrick used the shamrock as a symbol with which to explain the miracle of the Trinity. Let's not forget the pot of gold that each leprechaun possesses and must give up to the person who captures him.
And finally, one might just think green. Green being, of course, the color associated with St. Patrick's Day.
So there is more to St. Patrick's Day than leprechauns and four-leaf clovers. There's also tradition, one being pinched if you don't wear green. I'm Luann Huntermark.
And I'm Pat Fury for Focus News Magazine.
Recently on campus, there was a peacemaking conference. It's only one example of how PLU is taking part in a nationwide movement supportive of peace. Tom McArthur has a report on it.
The conference was called Mandates for Peacemaking and started off on a Friday night with the showing of the film On the Beach, produced and directed by Stanley Kramer. The film was released in 1959 and stars Fred Astaire, Gregory Peck, and Ava Gardner. The film depicts what life might be like for the few remaining people following a world-class nuclear war. Now a resident of the Northwest, Kramer says that he, like most of the rest of us, knows very little about nuclear technology.
Does that remove my citizens' right to ask questions about the safety of nuclear plants and what the government is doing about talking, when they talk in terms of we won't relinquish our right to a first strike, or that there is such a thing as unlimited nuclear war? Are they kidding? I mean, I'm willing to say I'm fairly stupid and less sophisticated than I should be about a lot of things scientific, but are they really kidding me? They've got to be. They can't be on the level. Because I don't care who drops one, you're going to get it back. The sophisticated systems of retaliation today are such that you're going to start it. So you better not think you're going to finish it.
A film is the culmination of the efforts of not just one person, but many, many people. Each has something individual that they want to say when they were putting the film together. What was it that you were trying to say?
Well, I'm very wary of that kind of question, to tell you the truth. mostly because what I was trying to get across wasn't at all my objective, never occurred to me. I was moved emotionally by the idea that in a world which had finally arrived at the point where in any one country where a weapon was devised and had been devised, which if used would end up destroying the country which used it. And I felt a sense of wanting to have people understand or agree or disagree violently in order to reach some agreement, some way to wage peace instead of war, some way to outlaw weapons such as this. In those days, it was just the nuclear weapon. We didn't have a megatonic idea to look forward to. And I suppose the bombs today, some scientists say, are as much as 50, 100 times more powerful than the one that was dropped on Hiroshima. So that's a cause for a little worry. But my feeling about the film was, well, this is contemporary, it's important, but what I wanted to get across was merely to expose the idea that somehow there must be some way to avert the possibility of a Holocaust of that nature.
The conference continued on Saturday with featured speakers Ruth Adams, editor of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, and Dr. Roger Shin, professor of theology and ethics at Union Theological Seminary, who says global peace must be based on mutually beneficial agreements.
But I think your only chance is get an agreement that is to mutual advantage. Then somebody might say, well, it's still to my disadvantage to cheat. And that's why you want a verification system good enough to remove the incentive to cheat. And it doesn't have to be perfect.
Even though war maneuvers are often referred to as war games, Ruth Adams says that nuclear war is no game.
I think we have to reverse our position about dealing with the Russians, be it trade, exchanges. We have to drop the rhetoric about destroying their society one way or another, and begin to build an environment whereby we can really begin to reduce arsenals. That would be my general approach.
Beyond the politics of global peace and global war, each of us has his or her own set of values which would cause us or keep us from fighting for our country should the situation ever arise. Recently, a psychology class here at PLU, under the direction of Professor Jesse Nolf, surveyed a number of PLU students about their reasons for or against involvement in military action. While ethical considerations prohibited discussion of specific details, Professor Nolf explained in general what the survey accomplished.
What we have generally found over the course of a 10-year span, even though the situations differ slightly or appreciably, is that students as a group at PLU are unwilling to endorse any war situation consistently unless it involves an actual territorial attack upon the United States. So items that read such as, if there were a nuclear strike, would you strike back, are often endorsed. If the United States were territorially invaded, would you endorse a war? Those things again engender a yes. But situations like, would you repel a Western NATO invasion by the Soviet Union? Would you get involved if there were an oil embargo on the part of the OPEC nations? Would you attempt to expel a force of Russian commandos from Alaska if they cut the pipeline and then give every evidence of getting out of their own accord? No. Only direct territorial threats.
Goes London, boom, Paris, more room for you and more room for me. In every city, the whole world round would just be another American town. Oh, how peaceful it would be. We set everybody free. You wear a Japanese kimono, baby, be Italian shoes for me. They all hate us anyhow. So let's drop the big one now. Let's drop the big one now.
With all the doom and gloom of potential global disaster, University Pastor Ron Vignac says
that there is hope amidst what seems to be a hopeless
situation. And that, and there lies our security.
In the end, the decision is ours. Ours as individuals, ours as a society, to decide really the most fundamental question of life itself. Do we want it, or do we want to throw it away? With photographer Fritz Brandenburg, I'm Tom McArthur for Focus News Magazine. The topic of global peace is just one of the many issues that elicits a response from quite a few people here on campus. The question also arises, where do you let those feelings out? Here with a Focus commentary is Tom Layson.
If thousands of dollars were put into your hands to make improvements upon the PLU campus, what would you do? There are many organizations and departments that could really use that money to benefit students. You would have to make a choice. Would you appropriate that money for items like the new science building, the math department, student scholarships, or the mooring mast? Or would you appropriate the money for items of questionable worth, like office plants, administrative trips, partitions in the CC that make getting a lunch or a dinner an impossible chore, or campus signs that let the passerby know that the weed patch he's viewing is a, quote, natural area? These are decisions that are made each week by the powers that be at Pacific Lutheran University. Granted, none of us have guns at our heads forcing us to attend this school. We all generally agree that the benefits of PLU outweigh its drawbacks. I pose the question, who is responsible? Not in terms of at fault, but in terms of who is answerable to the tuition-paying students at a private university. In the final analysis, the university really has no obligation to answer to us for their decisions by virtue of the private nature of this school. So what, you may ask, can the concerned student do when he or she feels that the university has made a bad decision in terms of funds appropriation or other areas? Actually, short of doing something rash like transferring or dropping out, which probably wouldn't do that much good anyway, being 2 or 3 other students could be found to take your place, there's really not a lot you can do, other than voice your opinion. There are many ways to express your opinion. The mooring mast is a proving method of stating a view, and your ASPLU officers are another. One can use signs and flyers, or even appear as a guest editorialist on Focus. Hopefully, this open forum not only allows discussion of some of the questionable issues involving the PLU community, but it also exposes the many good decisions and positive steps the decision makers of PLU make on a daily basis. I'm Tom Layson for Focus News Magazine.
The Student Investment Fund here at PLU is one more example of students getting some real-life experience here. Carol Orr has more on that organization.
Few people here at PLU know it, but the School of Business has a student investment fund here on campus. This fund was started 2 years ago when a PLU alum, Marilyn Davis, donated $25,000 to the School of Business in order to start an investment club here at PLU. Selected students now have the opportunity to learn firsthand about the investment world. The group learns to make the kind of decisions that a market analyst would make. In fact, in the club, there are 2 students who serve as market analysts for the fund. These 2 students are part of the board, and like the rest of the officers, are required to relinquish their stands after 1 semester. This year, the fund made a sizable profit when they sold many of their bonds at the end of last semester. At this point in time, the investment fund has approximately $34,000 in income. Recently, the club filed an annual report where they were only slightly below the national average of several big-name brokerages. They enjoyed a 23.5% gain, a truly outstanding achievement for amateurs in this competitive a field. One big thing this club teaches its members is responsibility. Mary Felstad.
So even though we have a portfolio management class in the business school where you manage a fake portfolio, you can take a lot more risk sometimes with that than you'll do with this because it is real money, and you do feel some responsibility to the people who then will come after you and manage the fund after that. So I think it's an invaluable experience.
As for the fund's future, they are optimistic and have set themselves some high goals. Mary Felstad states some of these goals.
Right now, and there's been some other ideas about what we might work on outside of just investing the money, such as doing something like a Wall Street Week or something like that, either on the TV or perhaps running a column in the mooring mast.
Also, the group would like to see themselves become more organized and structured like a real brokerage. The Student Investment Fund is open to all students, the only requirements being that you have taken Business Administration course number 364, Managerial Finance, or that you are currently enrolled. Although most of these members are business majors with their concentrations in finance, anyone is welcome to apply or to attend the meetings which are held in the UC on Mondays at 4 p.m. I'm Carol Orr for Focus News Magazine.
Well, here we are back where we started, and another edition of Focus News Magazine has come to a close.
Next month, we'll be taking a look at some other things happening on campus in depth on Focus News Magazine. Until then, I'm Shelly Swanke.
And I'm Tom McArthur. Have a good spring break. We'll see you in April.
Good night.